working in the field of antennas. So antennas, multiple things have been going on. So today will be focused towards the industrial side of it, where the antenna that you are designing, it can be utilized. So I'll be sharing the screen. Okay, so is the PowerPoint visible? Slide.
Yes, sir,
These are
visible.
busy.
It's visible, right? So starting with that, first I'll give a brief overview of what is happening out there for different cases and the technique that we are going to utilize today, the array thing. So how this is connected to whatever is being designed in India and all over the world. So I'll give a brief presentation on ANSYS application for 5G technology. Okay, thank you, Mr. Deepak. Yeah. So first thing is we had got different over the years. The generation has changed from 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G. So in the first generation, we had only voice chat out there. Then came voice as well as text. Then came voice, text, and internet. It was long back, but still. And finally, it came voice, text, internet, and multimedia. And in 5G, we have got smart environment, Internet of Things, self-driving cars. So in these cases, the different devices are connected to each other through different antennas, and these are continuously communicating with each other. So you can see in the figure that is shown below. So every device has got an antenna, utility management, smart parking, car-to-car communication, smart wearables, and there is a constant stream of data passing between these two different devices. So for that, first thing is the data rate should be quite high, and the antenna should be able to support that data rate. And second thing out there is important thing is that if we are talking about higher frequencies, in that case the person. So if the person is moving out here, if the antenna is placed somewhere, so the beam should always be covering this person out there. Means if the person is standing out here, so the beam should be right like this. The person moves ahead, the beam should move with the person out there. So for steering that beam, so we are going for phased array antenna, not normal but phased array. So that phased array, the beam steering can be achieved either electronically or you can go for phase shifter and other things, meaning using other switches. So today we will be seeing how beam forming is achieved. First of all, using a simple antenna, it's a simple patch antenna, and then going for an antenna array for 5G design. So these are the two cases. One is the sub 6 gigahertz range. So it starts from 0.7 gigahertz, covers up to 6 gigahertz, and next is the millimeter wave range. So starting from let's say 25 gigahertz up to 80 gigahertz. So the antennas have to be designed in these two particular bands. Sub 6 gigahertz, you've got large cell and MIMO structures. In millimeter wave case, you've got beam forming, massive MIMO, and different features are there. So we'll be covering this beam forming out here. And I will also be discussing like how to go for MIMO case. One of the questions that was asked. In case of ANSYS, we'll see all these things. First of all, we are just a brief overview of 5G. So you are going for three things. One is the user equipment. Next is the base station. Third is the channel characterization. For user equipment is whatever the antenna that is placed in the mobile phone. The base station is we are talking about the antennas placed on the towers which receive signal from the mobile phones and other places. And third thing is the channel characterization. In the case of a MIMO and other cases, what is the data rate and all those things that are shown out here. So this is the case of a user equipment, how this is designed and how it is visualized out here. So if the human body interaction takes place with the antenna, because of that, certain parameters get changed out there. The return loss, the matching, and other things get changed. So that thing can be visualized in ANSYS HFSS. So this is you can say, and also this entire design was made in HFSS itself. So you can see you can design conformal antennas. So if anyone is designing wearable antennas, like here you can see the device, the antenna was placed on the top of another structure. Now the structure is somewhat a step size. First step, second step, third step. The antenna was made in such a way that it is exactly following the curves of the structure over which it is placed. And on the left hand side, here you can see this is the millimeter wave model. So four elements are there. Four element array is present out here. So this is the different antenna out here. And also analysis that can be done, some advanced analysis that is mentioned out here is the antenna which is placed, the antenna array. On the top of it, we are placing certain cover out there to protect it from external environment. Now, because of placing the cover on the top of an antenna, any kind of cover, what happens? There is a decrease in the performance of the antenna. So here, the red color shows the antenna that is placed directly in the environment, and the blue one shows the antenna with the radome on the top. So because of placing the radome on the top, you can see the bandwidth is also shifted. Earlier it was coming up till here, now it has come down. And second thing is there is impedance mismatch. So these things has to be analyzed before the antenna is released into the market. And phased array antenna, today what we'll be discussing is this, the finite array domain decomposition method instead of explicit array. If you remember correctly, yesterday what we did, we made multiple copies of the cell out there and placed it beneath the antenna for the case of frequency selective surface. Today we are going to analyze the antenna by creating multiple copies of it and let HFSS reutilize the mesh for each case. So we'll designing an antenna. So this is the design procedure in today's case. We'll design a simple antenna out here, single element antenna, and check its performance. The next step will be designing a unit cell of the same antenna. Unit cell means we will assume that the antenna is repeated infinite number of times in x direction and infinite number of times in y direction. And based on that, HFSS will analyze what is the resulting pattern. Once that has been done, then we will take the same element and design a finite array. Let's say 2 cross 1 or 2 cross 2 array or 4 cross 4 array. So this is the background of the phased array. So whatever we are talking about, let's take an example. So here we can see 8 elements are there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 elements. Now if each of the eight element is fed in the same phase, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 itself. In that case, the beam that will be formed, let's say it's a broadside beam, it will be something like this. Next comes the question, even if there is a slight phase difference, slight phase shift. So if it is suppose fed at, let's say this is V angle 0, this is V angle, let's say 10 degree, V angle 20, V angle 30, V angle 40, V angle 50, V angle 60. The angle what I'm talking about is the phase, and V angle 70. In that case, there is a 10 degree of phase shift between each of the successive elements. Because of that, the, the pattern, individual pattern remains same. But in the time, when we are talking about the time domain, so you can see the phase front is different because each of the wave which is coming out is slightly out of phase with respect to the other elements out there. So because of that, you can see there is a small tilt out here. So the beam, broadside beam, which was earlier at theta equal to 0 degree, now is shifted at theta equal to, let's say, 30 degrees or 40 degrees towards the left, it might be towards the right. Now, why this is important is if the person is standing out here, so in that case, what is happening? The beam should be shifted. Now, question comes, there is a relationship between the phase shift as well as the beam form that is out there. So if I'm increasing the phase shift out there, so this beam is also going to be tilted at a certain angle. If I change the phase, it will get tilted even more. So how to calculate that? First thing is there are formula for that and it can be calculated. But in the case the antenna has got, let's say, complex pattern out there, and in that case, if it is required that if the beam is required at an angle of 30 degrees. So let's take an example. If I'm giving a phase shift of 10 degree out here, only 10 degrees, 0, V angle 10, V angle 20. And if I'm getting a beam at an angle of, let's say, 10 degree out here, so it's fine. If I give a phase shift between the elements of 10, the beam is at 10 degree theta. If I give a phase shift of 20 degrees, say V angle 20, V angle 40. In that case, suppose the beam tilts by an angle of 20 degree, just an assumption. So we can make a reverse calculation. Like if I want the beam at an angle of 60 degrees, that means the phase shift between each of the successive elements should be equal to 60 degrees. So that is fine. But this is just an approximation. In HFSS, what we do is we need not to make certain calculations. HFSS will do those calculations for ourselves. What we need to specify in HFSS is like we will ask HFSS to tell that I will we just give the input that the beam needs to be shifted by an tilted by an angle of, let's say, 30 degrees and 40 degrees or 50 degrees. What HFSS will do, HFSS in the background will provide the phase shift for each of the elements. It will calculate if the shift should be 30 degrees, so what should be the phase difference between each of the elements. So HFSS will do that and provide the phase shift and give it the results. So calculation need not to be done by the person. So this we will see it right now. So this also we'll check it out. And this is how it calculates it. Like if you are calculating the array pattern out there. So what we do is we go for array factor and the individual element pattern. We talked about master slave boundaries yesterday. So the same thing is mentioned out here, the phase delay between the master slave boundary. Master slave boundaries force periodicity in the fields corresponding to the periodicity of the array. Means whatever the fields are present in the master boundary, the same fields will be present in the same slave boundary itself. Okay? Except with a potential phase shift. So we'll do same thing out here. We'll check the results and then we'll come to finite array domain decomposition method. So what is the difference that we saw earlier is, so this is a single element out here. Now what has been done here is this single element has been copied multiple times in this direction as well as in this direction. Now when the meshing is done, in this case the lower end side, so the entire structure is going to be meshed. So let's say the number of elements created for a single element is 10. So in this case, for each element, 10 elements are created. So in this direction, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 elements per this side and 10 this side. So 100, you can say 10 cross 10 elements will be created. 100 elements will be created, 100 meshes will be elements will be created. The mesh will be quite large. The mesh density will be quite large and things have to be solved. The other way of doing that is we have made a copy out here, but here what you can notice is there is a small boundary between each of the elements. So what we will do is we will ask HFSS to mesh the first element itself, and then HFSS will import the mesh of the first element across all the elements because the elements are same and the same mesh is repeated over the entire structure. The first thing is the meshing is done, but the mesh is copied from one element over the entire set out there. So this helps us to reuse the mesh. So it saves time, saves RAM. And as a result of this, whatever calculations that you are making, whatever is taking 2 to 3 hours, the same thing will be solved in quite less time. So this is the example out here. Explicit means the entire array is analyzed, all those things are taken into account, any excitations can be given. In finite array, entire array is analyzed. Mutual coupling terms are also taken into account. Same results, but it is very efficient. What will happen is, first of all, it's divided into suppose 10 cross 10, 100 cells. Now let's say finite array domain decomposition. So the entire domain out here might be divided into suppose five subparts, 10 subparts, or 15 subparts. So suppose I'm dividing into 4 subparts. So from here to here one part, here to here second part, third part, and fourth part. And each of the part will be solved in a separate machine and give you the final result, which is usually not possible in this case, how to divide it. But in this case, the division is quite easy. So this we'll check it out right now. So with that, we'll go into the design. So first, someone asked about the corporate feed. So let me address that first, and then we'll move forward. So this is a single element array, sorry, single element antenna. This is edge coupled antenna. So the impedance at this edge, as we saw in the first lecture itself, the impedance at this edge can be anything. Let's suppose the impedance at this edge is 300 ohms, and this is a 50 ohm port. So when I have to connect 50 to 300 at a frequency of let's say 10 gigahertz, so I need to design a line whose length is equal to lambda by 4. So 10 gigahertz correspond to 1 centimeter, 1 by 4 is equal to 10 gigahertz, sorry, corresponds to 3 centimeters. So 3 by 4, 0.75. So this length should be equal to 0.75 centimeter, and the width will correspond to the impedance. So what is the impedance of this line? So that will be equal to the square root of the impedance of the lower into the square root of the impedance of this. So suppose this is 300, this is 50. So under root 50 into 300. So whatever the value comes, that will be the impedance of this line. Now for designing corporate feed, so we'll take an example here. So let me explain it to you the basics of it. So this is, let's say, 50 ohms impedance. So 50 ohms is divided into two other impedance, that is of 100 ohms and 100 ohms. Because if you put 200 into parallel, even in any electrical circuit or any case, it will give you 50. So 50 ohms is divided into 100 and 100 out here. Now this 100 ohm is present out here. Okay, this 100 ohm is present out here, and it finally needs to be connected at some place out here. So how to do that? Let's take an example. So as you can see here, two quarter waves are used. So is this okay? This is visible to everyone. So same figure is there. 50 ohm is there. It's divided into 100 into 100. Now, first thing what we have done is we are not directly connecting across this. We are using a 50 ohm impedance rather. So connecting this 100 ohm to this 50 ohm will require the first quarter wave transformer. We could have directly connected it here using only single quarter wave, but no, we are using two quarter wave transformers, so 100 and 50. The square root of that is giving you 70.71 ohms. So this is one quarter wave transformer which is connecting 150 ohms. Fine. So we are able to achieve 50 ohms out here. So that was our target, that we should achieve 50 ohms out here. So whatever this was value out here, the same figure we are repeating out here. Now this 50 ohms needs to be connected to this edge out here. So the value of edge is again, let's say, anything 300, 400, 500 ohms out here. So 50 into 300 ohms, the square root of that will give you the impedance of this. So same way you can divide into n number of structures. All is required to be known is that we have to use quarter wave transformer whatever place it is required. But in this case, we are not going to get a phase shift because this is an identical structure. So whatever if power is supplied out here, the voltage coming from this and this end out here. So the phase of these two will be same. So in the corporate feed, we can provide a phase shift, but in that case, the length of the line should not be equal. They will not be equal out here. This is one corporate feed example, and you can check it out here also. Example of a corporate feed. Same thing has been done out here, and this can be run. So these elements are designed. Now, I hope that is clear, and if any doubts are there, we can discuss it later on also. So this was an example of a corporate feed network. Now let's go to the 5G design. That is the beam forming, other things that have to be. So let me go for a new project. Let's say okay, we go for a new project itself. So this is the project out here. The design is already inserted. So right now we have already did the design extensively for the past 2 days. So today what we are going to do is we are going to use the feature of antenna design toolkit out here. So you go to component libraries. Here you can see the different antennas are kept out here, like bicone is there, discone is there, chip, helix, monopole, and different antennas are placed out here. Patch is there. But what we will do is it's difficult to modify these antenna for a given value. So instead of taking directly this out here, we are going to design an antenna for 28 gigahertz. In that case, what we'll do is go to view and ACP extensions. So it takes a few seconds to open up. What we are going to do is take a single antenna, design it, check its parameter. If required, we are going to optimize it. The second step will be using the same antenna to create a unit cell using locate port and master slave boundary to see if that antenna was or element was repeated in finite number of times, what its pattern will be. The third step will be once we have obtained that pattern, so we made the required calculations. The third step will be taking the same element and creating an array of our desired size. Let's say x cross y size and checking its parameters. So this is antenna toolkit. It is present everywhere. All the 2020 R1, 19 R1, 18 R1 is present out here. So let me go for a patch antenna. Patch. Rectangular probe grid and center frequency. Let me make it 28 gigahertz. Click on synthesis. So these dimensions are going to change automatically. Okay, this is done and click on finish. So this is one example. So this is a rectangular microstrip patch antenna that is designed for a particular validation for 28 gigahertz. So this step is the radiation boundary and everything is placed out here. This you can see out here. Is there, and the boundaries and everything is placed out here. So it's right now not visible, but everything is in place. And this has to be visualized. Like what is the value and other things that will be done out here. So this antenna, once I'll not run it right now because it will take certain amount of time. The same thing has been done out here. Let me show you. As you can see here, it has been optimized so that the substrate dimensions are less in this case. But again, the structure is same. The coax has been placed out here, and lower end side you can see wave port. In this case, port cap has not been given because the wave port is directly interacting with the radiation boundary. The inner coax is there, inner conductor is there, outer conductor is there, and on top this patch is there. So the next step we need to analyze it. So this is designed for 28 gigahertz. So this is the value 28 gigahertz, number of passes equal to, and this is the sweep from 20 to 35 gigahertz. It's made interpolated. It's not kept at fast. Then we'll go to the results. Let's say the return loss. Let's say it will. So this you can see the return loss is not pretty good. It's coming at minus 10, minus 10 dB, not even minus 10 dB, but close to that. So what we can do is, first of all, we can optimize the antenna so that the return loss comes even further down, minus 12, minus 15, or minus 18 dB. So that optimization needs to be performed. For that case, we need to change the dimensions of the patch as well as mostly increase the dimensions of the substrate also. Because if I'm keeping the substrate equal to, let's say very close or equal to the patch itself, so in that case, the matching is quite bad, as you can see out here. But for our purpose, this serves that this antenna is working at 28 gigahertz, so this is fine. And this is the pattern. So this is the pattern. So the radiation is broadside, and at theta equal to 0 degrees. So no tilting, nothing is there because it is a single element antenna. So the next step will be taking the same antenna out here and making a copy of it, and then we are going to create a unit cell. So suppose copy, and if I'm pasting. So this coax has been done. Now in this case, what we will do is we will remove the radiation boundary and all those things out here. So I'm selecting this and remove. The radiation boundary has been removed. And second thing is, this in this antenna we are more interested in looking at the results of the antenna itself and not at the coax. So what we will do is we will delete the coax, and instead of coax at the same place we are going to put a lump code out here. So we will delete the coax. So this is done. Those things have been deleted, and wherever the coax was there, in the same place, a lump code has to be defined. So the lump code will be, let's say, in the XZ direction, XZ plane. We will select XZ from here and define a lump code out here. So right now it's touching here. The position is incorrect. Again, it's rough. The position is incorrect. So it should be at the same position where the coax was kept. But the main thing is, with this we have got a rectangle one out here, which will act as a port. We select it, right click, assign excitation. Let's say we are going for lump port. So the ground will act as a reference conductor. Click on OK. So this is done. The next step will be going for the defining it such that it looks like a periodic structure. So in that case, what we'll do is make the same design once again. Select this. I'm making it back to XY. So this structure is made out here. Now what we will do is we will make certain changes out here. So let's give it as once. So this you can see this has been defined. Now what we need to do is define the master slave boundary. So as usual, we'll select this, right click, assign boundary. We can select any of the four places as the master boundary, master. Let's define the first one. Fine, the first reference will define. We could have defined it from this way also, that was also fine. So in this case, we need not to reverse the direction because it's already within the plane. Because next step is defining the corresponding slave bound. The master bound, defining the new vector for this. You can see this is corresponding exactly to this position. Next, and here comes right. Use the scan angles to calculate the phase delay. So this scan angle, what is the meaning of this scan angle? So let me, for the moment, make it as angle phi angle, and this may make it as theta angle. So let's give it 0 degree itself, 0 degree itself. This is done. Now this is the antenna out here, element out here. So right now it's not completely periodic because we have defined the periodicity only in the x direction. That means x and minus x. We have to do the same thing for y also. Let's define it and then I'll show you what the meaning. Right click, assign boundary, master. and the opposite side will be corresponding slave boundary. Next, it has already chosen phi and theta and keep on. Now let's take a look at this. Right now, the beam that you saw, let me show it and make it like this. So right now you can see the beam is exactly lying like this, exactly this way. Right? Let's say theta equal to 0 degrees. Now I need to tilt the beam. So right now we are able to visualize only the YZ plane. So YZ plane stands for phi is equal to 90 degrees. So if I'm tilting the beam, let's suppose it tilts this way. It, it suppose tilts this way, something like this, at theta equal to 45 degrees in the YZ plane. So for that case, we will define the beam tilting as theta equal to 45 degrees, phi is equal to 90 degrees, so that the beam lies tilts along the YZ plane itself at an angle of 45 degrees from the Z axis. We can do the same thing this way also. If I change it, I'm changing the orientation itself. Again, I can tilt the beam in the XZ plane, that is phi equal to 0 itself. Earlier it was phi equal to 90 degrees, now phi equal to 0 itself, this way. Again 45 degrees or 60 degrees or 75 degrees, 30 degrees, 15 degrees, 20 degrees, whatever the beam tilting will be, but in the exact plane. So here we are tilting in phi equal to 0 and then phi equal to 90. We can tilt it in any plane, in any given direction, whatever is required, but we'll choose for only two references, that is phi equal to 0 and phi equal to 90. So for that case, what will happen is, if I'm tilting the beam this way at phi equal to 0, this is phi equal to 90 and at an angle of 45 degrees. So when I'm tilting the beam in such a way, so what will be the phase difference between each of the elements out there so that the beam gets tilted. So to calculate that, HFSS will has placed the master slave boundaries, and it will use the given angle phi equal to something angle and theta equal to something angle to calculate the successive phase difference between the elements out there. Hence, let me show it here. So this is what I had shown out here. So hence we are going for this case. So if the phase is suppose here it is suppose anything whatever the phase is here. So the phase will change out here for the next element. And again for the next element it will keep changing. So by what angle the phase should change, that will depend upon the beam which has to be tilted. So for that case, what we are doing is we are giving the beam tilt angle out here in the slave boundary itself. And second thing that you saw out here is this is the complete design. So in this case, the unit cell, you can see the cell is only up to here. It's not going below. The reason for that is twofold. First thing is, on the bottom side we have got a perfect conductor. You can see it in the figure. It's completely copper out here, and you can also see it in this figure. Also, it's same thing. It's completely copper on the lower end side. So the question comes: whatever the fields which are incident, so the radiation will take place only from the top side, and there will be nothing on the back end side. It's not a DGS or any kind of defect is made in the ground, not any kind. So it's a complete ground plane out here. So the radiation or the electric field on the back end side are completely shorted out. Hence, there will be no radiation on the back. What we do is we need not to waste the computer resources by making a box of this size. So we can reduce the size so that it reaches only up till here. And second thing is, you can see this port out here. The port will be kept at a place exactly where the impedance was 50 ohms, so that it's going to excite it. So once this is done, next step will be defining the locate ports. So we will select this on the top of it, right click, assign excitation. Let's check it out first. Let's go for locate port. Fine. The locate port option is not highlighted out here. The reason for that is locate port option is supported only when we are doing a driven modal analysis, not driven terminal. So you can see it's still driven terminal. So what we will do is we will change it to driven modal. Solution type modal. Click on OK. Now what we can do is we'll select it again, right click, assign excitation. You can see the pivot port is there, and then let's define the first vector. Let's suppose I'm going from here to here. Let's define the second vector. So two vectors have been defined. Next, and here comes the question of mode calculator, mode calculation out here. So let's see what the mode calculator does. So suppose if I am going for mode calculator, number of modes equal to 20, we put it out here. So 5, let's say starting at 0, stopping at 90, step size of 90 itself. Beta 0 to 90, step size we are giving, let's say 90 itself. Okay. So here what you can see out here is whatever waves which will be coming out of here. So those waves are going to be decomposed into these many modes: T00, TM00, T01, T-10, TM-1. So these are called as Floquet modes. So you can go through the theory of Floquet modes or Floquet modes to get a better idea. So these are the Floquet modes. So out of the entire waves which is going out there, so we can decompose those waves into individual components, and these individual components HFSS calculates for those. Now, in these individual components, some of the components are going to decay at a rate of 40 dB per unit length, 40 dB per unit length, 40 dB per unit length, some at 103 dB per unit length. That means as the waves start from here and reach up to a distance of 1 centimeter, they will be attenuated by 40 dB. And they go for 2 centimeters, the wave will be further attenuated. That means by the time they reach there, they will hardly exist. So we did not to use those modes for calculations. We have seen only the first two modes are useful for our calculations. Hence, what we'll do is we keep here only as two. Click on next. De-embedding, we are not doing it right now. Click on next. And effects refinement, you can remove the tick. You can see what is happening out here. In general, only add Floquet modes when these modes create 3D field of interest. That means whatever modes are there, they are going to affect the refinement process. So if you have got a lower RAM size and lower values, we are not going to tick mark this. So in this case, I'm clearing this refinement and click on finish. So the Floquet mode has been assigned on the top. So this completes our modeling for this part of the antenna, and then we are going to run it. Again, running this thing is usually takes some time. So you can see it out here. The same structure has been made and renamed it as unit cell. So in this case, if you look closely from the side, you can see this code has been placed exactly at the place where the codes were there. Because we are right now interested in analyzing only the properties of the antenna. And check the boundaries. So this is the finite antenna method ground method, master one. So it has been assigned this way for this case, master one. The corresponding thing is slave one is also pointing in the same direction in master two. Master one was this side, master two is this side. And then excitation. So yesterday question was asked, can a wave port be utilized in Floquet port? So yes, in this case the antenna is there. Antenna is going to put out going to radiate. So that radiation from the antenna will be, so for exciting that antenna, the wave port will be required. Or you can go for lump port also, doesn't matter. In this case, lump port has been defined. Okay, this is the lump port itself. And second is the Floquet port. So this is the master one, master two, this way, and then the Floquet port. Once this has been defined, this is going to run for another, let's say, what frequency? The same 58 gigahertz. Number of passes is equal to 15. And the third step is going to be, let's say, S parameter shape 20 to 25 gigahertz. Number of points equal to 2.1. So once this is analyzed, so first thing, let's take the return loss. Now what is happening out here is the moment we are assigning a Floquet port, so HFSS will make multiple copies of it in the background of it and process them. So those multiple copies are not shown here right now, but it makes multiple copies out there. And what will happen is if I'm making this antenna such a way, Now the second element will be placed out here. The third element adjacent to it. Here also same in the y direction in minus y, and similar thing in the plus x direction. Adjacent elements are created. Now when we are placing two elements very close to each other, there will be certain amount of coupling between these two elements. And because of these, the coupling between the elements, the return loss might shift, the matching might degrade. So what we suggested is usually increase this distance from this substrate edge to the patch edge. Increase the distance so that when you are placing a second element out here, so this the distance between the two patches is somewhat large. For normal case of array, we keep it as lambda by 2 for the north side radiation. So this is the S parameter return loss. So you can see because of the mutual coupling, it has shifted. The return loss is same, close to minus 9.8, but this has shifted to less than 27.5. It's close to 26 gigahertz. The shifting is done is there because of the mutual coupling out here. And also, we can make the analysis out here is that you can see out here is we have made an analysis if the beam has to be tilted in a particular direction. So what should be the value of theta and what should be the value of each element out here. So for that, what we have done is we have done an optometric setup. So this you can see phi scan is there. So we had kept it phi angle. Here phi scan is there. So we are tilting the beam in only two planes, the XZ plane and the YZ plane. In XZ plane, this is talking about the XZ plane starting at 0, okay, and ending at starting at 0, the XZ plane, stopping at 90. This is the YZ plane, and the step size is 90 degrees. This is talking about XZ plane and YZ plane. And in those planes, what should the value of theta? So again, so we are tilting it from 0 to 60 degree itself. We'll see it later. From 0 to 60 degrees itself and at an angle of step size of 15 degrees. So first beam will be exactly broadside, no tilting, 0 degrees, then comes 15 degrees, then comes 30 degrees, 45 and 60 degrees. So that will visualize. But this is an infinite array. So we will do it for the case of a finite array which is going to be created. So main thing was return loss that was shown out here. And we can also check out this, the realized gain, okay, for different cases. So this right now will make, if you can see this, the infinite elements are placed so close to each other. So how the beam will look like? So theta is scan 0 degrees, theta 0 degrees. Now if it is tilting, theta equal to 15 degrees. You can see the major lobe has tilted towards 15 degrees. You can see also multiple nulls are available out here. Then 30 degrees. You can see the beam has tilted towards 30, and then comes 45 degrees, and finally comes 60 degrees out here. So beam is tilting out here. This is a 2D pattern out here. This was in the XZ plane, phi equal to 0. Same thing, you can do it for phi equal to 90 degrees. Initially broadside pattern, then tilting at an angle of 15 degrees, tilting at an angle of 30 degrees, tilting at an angle of 45, and then finally 60 degrees. So this is for the infinite array that is shown out here. Next, how to use a finite array domain decomposition method. That is one of the features of HFSS. So in that case, what we do is we delete this model. Select the square patch unit cell. This is shown out here. Make a copy of it. Copy and go to antenna array flow, right click and click on paste. So this has been pasted out here. Now you can see this is single cell out here. Now we need to make multiple copies of it. And second thing is copies are finite. So first thing what we will do here is we will delete from the top the flocate ports, because flocate port, the moment you create it, finite number of copies are created. So we are going to delete it. Excitations, flocate port, delete this. On the top, we are going to place a simple radiation boundary. Right click, selection mode, faces, select the top face, right click, assign boundary. Let's go for radiation. Okay. So this is done. The unit cell has been created and on the top radiation boundary is there. Now let's suppose we are going to create a 2 cross 2 array. Yesterday as we saw, HFSS model, create array. Let's do it for 2 cross 2. Make them this and click on, let's say, apply. So you can see out here 2 cross 2 element has been created. Let me make it even more interesting. Let me make it 1 2 cross 1 also. Fine, or let me make it 1 cross 2. So you need to show something. Fine. So this is the normal element array that we can design using corporate fit also in this case also. But what is the advantage of designing out here is, so if suppose the first element that is we are seeing out here, this is at an angle of V angle 0. The second one we are feeding at a V angle of V angle 10 degree. So this V angle 10 degrees, if I'm feeding it, the beam is going to tilt in a certain direction. Now, based on the tilting angle, the phase shift changes. Or let's reverse it. Based on the phase shift out here, the beam tilting angle changes. So if the question comes, the beam needs to be tilted at an angle of 30 degrees or 45 degrees, what should be the phase shift? So that calculation we need not to make. We have already input the values like phi equal to 0 degrees and phi equal to 90 degrees. In those planes, the beam should be tilted at a particular angle. So for that case, HFSS is going to calculate the phase for each element and assign it to this. So let's say it's going to assign at B angle 0. This will assign as B angle 15 or B angle, let's say 100, let's say 80 degrees or 60 degrees, whatever the case might be. And you can create any kind of cell out here, any kind of pattern. It's not only rectangular array or something. So if I want to make a circular array, so let's see if I'm able to do it. It will look very uh, rough out here, but again, it's going to, let's see if it's able to do it. Let me make it 5 cross 5 itself. Now let's say this is the element out here, 5 cross 5. Now this is each of the element is present out here, but we need to make a certain pattern. So what we'll go is click on active cells. So right now everything is active, all are active. So by making a click out here, I will make certain cells as passive. So let's say I'm making this as passive, this as passive, this as passive, this as passive. Fine. Or okay, this is also passive, this is also passive. So right now you can see we are getting a kind of a circular structure, not exactly circular, but this kind of array is okay, somewhat circular in nature. Because these elements on the sides are not going to be active, they are not going to take part in calculations, only these will take part in calculation. So right now you can see what kind of figure we are seeing. This kind of pattern is obtained, and if the number of cells are quite high, in that case this kind of pattern will smoothen out. So right now it's looking like a kind of very rough, not exactly a circle, but a very rough square or something. But if I increase the cells at the boundaries out here, it will finally tend to be a circle or hexagon, whatever is required. What I will do is I will make it as 1 cross 2 cell, make it active, both of them are active, 2 cross 2, apply. Now this is the element that is created out here, 4 cross 4. The next step for solving this will be, what we will do is, this is the square batch unit cell 1. So let me disable the set sweep for the moment. We are going to check it for 28 gigahertz itself, or the beam forming and other things takes place. Right click and let me disable the sweep. And second thing, how to reutilize the mesh. So what we will do is we will go to solution, double click on it, and options, advanced. In advanced, we are going to import mesh. Remember the second time we created a design, so that was the design of the unit cell. So what we'll go is we'll click on import mesh. So it will ask from where to import. So we will use this project itself to import it. Let me show you which design we are going to import it from. So we are going to import it from this cell itself. So the same design was copied multiple times. So we are going to import it from square patch unit cell itself. So I'll go to setup. Advanced import mesh. Use this project. So it will ask me which one, source design. So source design was square patch unit cell, right? And then make a tick mark or simulate source design as needed. Preserve the source design solution. Click on this and then click on OK. Okay, accept and exit dialog. And here it's only 28 gigahertz, 50 number of passes. Order of basis function is, let's say, anything you can use first order or zero order. Okay. Now the mesh that was created for this unit cell, this mesh is going to be repeated over the entire structure out here, and the structure is going to be solved. And once the structure is solved, we are going to get certain this kind of structure. Uh, so this is done. So this is out here, the kind of pattern that we are going to get. Let's see that pattern. So it's taking some time to calculate. So defining using domain decomposition method and all those things, it takes certain. So this is, you can make a guess, like this beam is there. So the beam is tilted in which plane? So this is phi equal to 0 plane and this is phi equal to 90-degree plane. Phi equal to 0 and phi equal to 90 degrees. So the beam is tilted in phi equal to 90-degree plane at an angle of, we can say it's close to 30 degrees. At an angle of 30 degrees, it's tilted out here. So when it's tilted out here, then what we will do is, so how the tilt has been provided is, each of the element has been given a certain phase shape. So it can be 0 angle, 10 degrees, 20 degrees, 30, 40, 50, something like that. That angle has been provided, and that thing can be calculated and exported from here. Go to excitations, right click, edit sources, and you can see. So there are a total of 16 elements. That means so total of 16 excitations, and each of the excitation is shown out here. The first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. So what we can do is we can save it to file, save to file, click on this, and then leave it. So this can be saved out there. And based on that, now what will happen is, once this is saved, now we need to design an array antenna in real time case, and for that we require to tilt the beam. So for tilting the beam, HFSS has already told us what is the phase shift for each of the individual element. Now all we require to do is design a network that is going to provide phase shift in such a manner. So it can be a, let's say, a Butler matrix, or it can be using any kind of electronically beam steering structure out there, which will provide phase shift for each of the individual elements out here. So main thing is getting the value of that particular phase shift. Let's check out the pattern. Field overlays, plot fields, radiation field. Now, this question might come that the beam is made only at this plane. The beam actually should be at the center. The reason for this is, whenever HFSS design any kind of 3D pattern, so the 3D pattern is always designed at the origin, irrespective of wherever the structure is placed. So even if I have placed a structure anywhere in the XY plane or XYZ volume out there, the beam still would have been created exactly at this X equal to 0, Y equal to 0, and Z equal to 0. So the beam that is shown out here is actually a combination of the patterns of each of the 16 elements out here, and HFSS has combined those interference results and created the pattern at Z equal X, Y, Z equal to 0. Now, if we need to tilt the beam, so let's say I'm clicking on square patch DDM. So on the left hand side, it can be shown, let's say, scan angle theta, scan angle phi. So let's say I'm making theta equal to, let's say, 0 degrees. So here you can see what will happen to the beam. So if I make theta equal to 0 degrees, it will take certain time for calculation. It's updating the results. Fine. So right now you can see the beam has come exactly on the top with the broadside pattern. The beam for phi equal to 90 degrees, because you can see phi equal to 90 degrees. In this case, it's difficult to say it's phi equal to 0 or 90. But the thing is, when the beam tilts, in that case, we are asking that the beam is tilting in a certain plane. So earlier the beam was tilted in phi equal to 90, that is the YZ plane, and at an angle of 30 degrees. So now it has come exactly from the top. So we'll see the beam forming out here. So for that, what we'll do is you click on animate, 3D realize scheme. Okay. So we are going for scan angle of theta. So theta will go from, let's say, 0 to 60 degrees at a step size of 15 degrees itself, which was already calculated. And we need tilting at only these particular step size, and click on OK. So it will take certain time to calculate these things. In the meanwhile, I'll keep the session open for questions. So it's making the calculations out here in the background.
Thank you, Akash sir.
Right, so
So now we'll be taking questions for this session. So the first question is, sir,
right, so
can Akash sir provide a manual where different solutions to solve HFSS errors are available? It would be helpful for us.
okay. So can you read it once again, sir, please?
Can Akash sir provide a manual where different solutions to solve HFSS errors are available?
Okay, fine. So one thing is there, the manual, I don't have the manual, but usually if you go through the HFSS, the PDF that is shared, the long PDF, in that case, many of the errors might have been dealt with. And second thing is, if the certain errors we can overcome just by looking at it. Let's take an example. If I have got a port out here, a socket out here, in that socket I am placing, let's say, one device I am placing in the socket, and in the same socket I am placing another device. So physically that is not possible. Physically in a socket only one device will go. But if I'm making two devices go in a socket, so that is physically not possible. But in HFSS, since this is software, we can do anything out here. So let's take an example. If I'm designing a port out here, let's suppose a rectangle is defined as a port out here. So it is given an excitation of, let's say, lump port already done. Now suppose we forgot and we are exciting it again. Same structure, we are making a click on it and assigning it assign port again lump port 2. So in that case, the same structure is being given excitation twice. So when we run that, so an error something like this will come, like lump port 1 and lump port 2 are overlapping with each other. So based on that, let's say 90 to 95% of the errors can be diagnosed just by looking at the message itself. Or let's say another example. If I'm saying that perfect E1 boundary and perfect E2 are overlapping, so we have to see at which place we have given perfect E1 boundary, at which place we have given perfect E2 boundary, and make changes in the dimensions like it happened yesterday itself. It was not meant to happen, but it happened. There was an overlap between the antenna ground plane and the antenna structure. So what I did is we made the cut a bit larger. So in that case, the antenna was no longer overlapping with the ground plane alongside it. So a definite manual is not there, but if you make a search out there, let's say, so over the time you will get an idea where the things are going wrong. And if certain things are totally not present, in that case you can put it across the mail that I'm getting this error, and we will try to find out a solution why this error is coming.
Okay, thank you, sir. The next question is how to test the fabricated array antenna in this procedure, like having Flockit code with the network analyzer.
So the Flockit code that we are making out here is the Flockit is code is meant just for analysis. It's a mathematical tool for analysis. When you are actually making an antenna, let's suppose if you're talking about antenna fabrication, so the antenna fabrication and testing is done in anechoic chamber. Now in HFSS, we don't have any anechoic chamber because in real life, suppose if I'm testing an antenna, what happens? I'm placing an antenna, suppose at point A, and receiver antenna at point B, a horn or something at point B. Then the anechoic chamber is suppose a 1 meter size structure, 1 cross 1 cross 1 meter. So let's say it's 1 meter cube structure, it's quite large. In HFSS, we can do the same thing. We can take an antenna, we can take another antenna, we can draw a box 1 meter cross 1 meter cross 1 meter and place it absorbers on all the sides and everything. But if I do that, there will be no use out here because it will take the same amount of time and computational resources. So what I do is I need the solution, but I don't wish to require so much space and time. So what I have done is, first of all, I have reduced the size in HFSS. But once I reduce the size, so how do I make the new box of reduced size behave same way as an anechoic chamber is behaving in real time? So what I do is I put mathematical conditions on it. So whatever the anechoic chamber behaves in real life, the same thing is modeled in terms of mathematical equations, and those equations are enhanced and put it on the box so that now the box, even though size is less, it does the same function as the anechoic chamber is doing. Same thing happens in the case of Floquet port. So Floquet port is just meant for mathematical analysis and calculation that will tell you how the results are obtained. So suppose, let's take an example. In our case itself, we saw because of the mutual, this has shifted from 28 gigahertz to, let's say, to 26 gigahertz itself. Now what we will do is we'll make certain adjustments in the software itself so that we'll increase the separation or the distance out there so that the mutual coupling is less. And after that, we fabricate the antenna. So fabrication of antenna and then testing it takes place exactly as the other antennas are tested. So Floquet port testing is not there, something like that. It's just for the analysis purpose.
Okay, thank you, sir. The next question is, your session is very informative. Can you please show beam steering using corporate array?
Again, the question comes now. First of all, how does the beam steering occur? The beam steering occurs when the elements are having a phase shift. Now, in our case, when I have designed this, this corporate feed network, in this case, the corporate feed network are having the equal magnitude of phase. So whatever the phase was on the left hand side, the same was on the right hand side. So because of that, the beam steering is not going to take place because both are having the same phase. But if what I do is, if I change the length of any one of the line out there, so there will be slight amount of phase difference because of the difference in the two lines. Because of that, the phase shift is going to occur. So, and actual phase shift, we are going to see it right now itself, the beam steering. What I suggest is, in that case, for corporate network itself, uh, uh, let's see, whatever the design that I showed it out here, try to increase the length of one of the size element and try to run it. It will give you the same, it will give you the beam steering out there. But in that case, the beam steering is fixed. Again, the beam steering is fixed. The reason is when I have made two roads, let's say I have made the left element and the right element. So the left element is supposed supplying at V angle 0. So the angle also, right element also is having supplied by V angle 0 itself. Now, if I increase the length of the right path, so let's say the phase shift is there, phase difference. Now the right element is getting power supply at, let's say, V angle 10 degree, but that V angle 10 is fixed. If I increase the path again that is going to change. Hence, we are going for this electronically steerable antennas. In those cases, we have got phase shifters from the outside, from which we can supply the power at different values of phase.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you. The next question is, why beam is showing at origin?
The beam is showing at origin because HFSS by default it always plots the beam of a single antenna or a single or an array of element always at the origin. That is by default fixed. So irrespective of wherever you are placing the antenna, the beam or the 3D pattern will always be plotted at the origin itself.
Okay, thank you, sir. The next is how to find the edge impedance of patch for designing quarter wave transformer.
So first thing is, if you are finding the edge impedance of the patch, so if you are, let's say, talking about the normal rectangular patch antenna itself, In that case, what you can do is you can go for calculations from the different antenna textbooks that are given out there. And second thing is, okay, let me try it out. Second thing is, what can be done is for finding the impedance out there is basically take the antenna itself. Fine, let's say take the antenna itself and connect a single line from the edge to the port, and we'll go for wave port, not lump port. So single antenna is there, on the edge a line is coming out that is connected to a 50 ohms. Now when we are defining the excitation of 50 ohms line, what we will do is we will define the integration line, or do not define, that is fine. When it comes to the option of B embedding, we will select B embedding. I'll share the let me show it out. It will be more clear. Fine. This is coming out here. Okay, so this is okay. This is what was the beam steering that was going on here. Okay, so this animation is complete. So you can see as the face.
Sir, your screen is not visible.
Okay, fine. So I'll share the screen once again. Is it visible now?
It's coming up, not yet.
Okay.
Yes, now it's visible.
Okay. So as you can see, as the beam is steering. Okay, so the beam is suppose at an angle of, I'm just going to stop it. So the beam is at angle 24 degrees, 28 degrees, 32 degrees, 36 degrees. In each of the cases, each of the elements has got a different value of phase shift altogether. So this is what, and in the bottom right, we are giving the excitation suppose from here, from lower end side. So here we can design a network out there, which will provide the respective amount of phase shift as required. Because if I'm going for a microstrip line for providing that kind of beam shifting out there, in that case the phase, although the shift will be there, but the shift is fixed. The beam will not going to be steered. So the beam will probably stay at 0 degrees itself or 10 degrees itself, because there is no means of shifting or giving a different phase because of the fixed microstrip line. In that case, what we do is we go for electronic switches, in which we can define what should be the phase which is going to be supplied to the antenna. So this is the example of beam steering. So the beam steering is being done in the YZ plane itself. Fine. And now the coming back to question that was asked is how to find the impedance. The first thing is go through any textbook like Ross is there or Bernis is there, and in that the formula is mentioned of the impedance calculation of the patch antenna and how the impedance will be calculated at the edge. And second way of doing that is so suppose this is there. So suppose I'm connecting I'm just arbitrarily making a 50 ohm line out here. Let's suppose it's 50 ohm line, and they should go and touch it exactly at the edge or connect it to the edge, so that both are touching each other. And the next step will be, oh, okay, it's in the bottom. Okay, now it has come to the top. Now we will define a port out here in the exact plane. This is defined is not correct, but let me make it even larger. Let's say from we are talking about the exact plane itself. Next one, x side is supposed to x side is supposed -2. So suppose the wave port is located out here. Select this, right click, assign excitation, wave port, and I'll make it first of all terminal, not modal, not terminal. Solution type, modal, click on OK. Select this, assign excitation, wave port, let's define it, fine. Next, de-embed. So de-embed, we'll get it graphically, get distance graphically. Click on this. And first click out here, second click out here, finish. Now, what is the meaning of de-embedding is, since we are providing the power supply out here, because of this microstrip line out here, there will be a phase shift. So whatever the, because of the length of the line, whatever the value will be present out here, it will shift slightly and reach here. So because of de-embedding, what is happening here is, whatever the phase that will be present out here, exactly out here, whatever the phase is present exactly out here, the same phase will be given at this edge. Now what we can do is, after running this, we can go for the plot of Z parameters, uh, results, create modal solution, rectangular plot, terminal Z parameters, okay, Z parameter, and based on that you can get what is the impedance at the edge out here.
So, sir, shall we move to next question?
Right, sir.
Yeah. Next question is related to array elements. If array is designed in HFSS, can we measure performance of individual element in terms of the parameters like data rate in millimeter range?
The individual elements. Um, right now, I cannot answer that question because I have no idea. But what I suggest is, can you please mail me this question so that I can ask the experts and give you a reply back on this.
Okay, thank you. So, participant Mr. Devidas Chekhale, you kindly email your question to Kaj sir. So he will answer over your to you over email. Next is there any approach in HFSS to calculate envelope correlation, coefficient, TARC, total active reflection coefficient in case of array systems?
Right, there is a technique for that. Let me show it here. Five. Let's go. Okay. I'll go. Fine, I'll choose one of the examples out here and try it inside itself. Open. Okay, now this is done. Let me remove this quickly. So a copy has been created of this design. Just quickly, let me show it out here. Control A. I'm going to duplicate it. So this has been made. There are two elements out here, and each of the element I'm giving it an individual feeding citations. Okay, so individual feed has been given 1 and 2. So this you can see. So I have to unite the, of course, the substrate has to be united, the ground has to be united, but they are individual feeds, feed 1 and feed 2. So the moment the two feeds have been designed, so HFSS has got a MIMO tool. So you can go to toolkit and click on MIMO. This is there. So for this, you require to have at least 2 or more excitations. So if I click on MIMO toolkit, so it will take some time to open it. Just wait 1 minute. Open up. Right. So you have got the MIMO toolkit that is given out here, and from here, okay, just let's hang to it. So here you can see it's correlation coefficient is being calculated. Correlation coefficient, and from here you can choose the frequency for what range of frequency. Suppose I'm choosing from 9 to 10, and once I click on generate, so ECC will be generated. Error correlation coefficient will be generated once I click on this, and based on that, if I want to calculate the directive gain also, so that also can be calculated by clicking on results, create field reports, rectangular plot. Where that option is not coming because I have not calculated that yet. But the moment I click on yes, it will calculate it, and then you can click on the same thing and results, create field reports, rectangular plot, and here that option will come up there, the directive gain and the ECC, error correlation coefficient. So that can be plotted. So this option is available in toolkit MIMO. Generate. Right, sir. We can go to the next question, sir.
Okay, thank you. We'll take two more questions for this session. So the second last is, can we use a MATLAB code in Optimatrix to define the phases to steer the beam?
Optimetrics code in MATLAB to define the phases to steer the beam.
MATLAB code in Optimatrix.
MATLAB coding in Optimetrics can be done. So what you can do here is, suppose Optimetrics is there, right click, add, suppose parametric. So this is already added. Then again add. Also one thing is there, parametric from file. So one thing you can do is using MATLAB code, if you are whatever the steering you need to provide, what we can do is it will whatever the final values on the MATLAB are coming out there. If you are able to save that into a CSV file or a text file out there in CSV format, and that format can be then directly imported into here to provide the respective phase shift. And second thing is there, this supports Python coding, this HFSS. It supports the scripting in Python as well as VB-script. So if you're able to write that script out here in HFSS and call the MATLAB code from that, so that also can be done. It will further automate the task, but yes, it is possible.
Okay, thank you, sir. And the last question for this session, which we'll be taking is, when to use driven type and model type for designing the antenna?
So, okay, that is a nice question. Driven terminal is like, first thing is I would suggest is you can go through the PDFs, the HFSS PDFs, the first one that was shared. Second thing is, when we are trying to analyze any structure in which different modes are going to propagate, and we actually need to visualize all those modes, TE mode, TM mode out there. In that case, we have to go for modal analysis. Otherwise, if you are going for normal TEM case or quasi TEM case, in that case, terminal analysis itself is sufficient. So if you've got this kind of antenna structure, in that case, terminal is fine. You can also go for model, but that is going to consume a RAM and not be much effective. Effective means much efficient. So terminal analysis is suggested in these cases.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So with this, we'll be now going for break. So we'll be meeting again at 12. So thank you, Kash sir, for sharing your expertise and answering the questions generously. And some of the